The night sky above Earth was calm, stars glowing like silver dust, and the human colony ship Horizon moved slowly around the planet, carrying workers, engineers, and soldiers, everyone believing life would stay ordinary. But everything changed when a strange signal came from deep space. The signal was not a warning, not a threat, but a royal message. Its voice clear yet otherworldly. The Princess of Zalira seeks a human husband. The words shook the command center. Officers stared at each other in silence, and for the first time in history, the galaxy spoke not of war but of marriage. The captain of Horizon ordered the message to be replayed. Again and again, scientists confirmed it was no trick. Diplomats on Earth went into panic. Politicians argued in heated voices. Some said it was a trap. Others believed it was a chance for peace, but no one could ignore it. An alien princess wanted a human, and she wanted him soon. Among the crew was Daniel Hayes, a young engineer with grease on his hands and tired eyes. He was not special, not a soldier, not a leader, just someone who fixed engines when they broke. Yet fate enjoys strange games, and Daniel's name came up by accident in the Royal Response System. One moment he was checking wires. The next he was being called to the bridge. Why me? Daniel whispered, his voice small. The captain shrugged. The system matched your genetic code. It seems she chose you. Daniel felt his chest tighten. The crew stared at him with pity and curiosity. He wanted to run, but where could he go? The stars offered no escape. News spread fast. Across Earth and the colonies, people filled screens with their opinions. Some laughed, some cheered, some cursed. Why should an alien princess take one of ours? They shouted. Others said, if this brings peace, let her have him. The world was divided. But the decision had already been made. Daniel Hayes was the chosen one. Days passed with heavy silence. Daniel could not sleep. He dreamed of strange eyes watching him. He imagined what the princess might look like. Monster or angel, he did not know. His friends tried to comfort him. Maybe she's beautiful, one joked. But Daniel only felt dread. Then one night, the sky above Earth tore open. A fleet of alien ships arrived, massive and glowing like cities in the stars. Their silver hulls reflected the moonlight. Weapons bristled along their sides, and yet no shot was fired. The people of Earth trembled. Their leaders prayed, their armies prepared. But the ships only hovered in silence. From the largest ship, a golden beam descended toward Earth. The ground shook as light cut across the horizon. The beam carried a message, a single voice, soft but powerful. People of Earth, I am Princess Ziyara of Zalira. I come not to conquer but to claim. Her words rolled across oceans and mountains. Reaching every ear, Daniel watched on the broadcast screen, his heart thundering. This was real, not a dream, not a trick. An alien princess was speaking to humanity. Her voice was strange, layered like music, but clear enough to understand. One among you has been chosen. He will come with me. He will join my throne, and through him your world will share my crown. The command center went silent. Every eye turned to Daniel. He shook his head, stepping back. No, this can't be happening, but deep inside, he knew there was no escape. The princess had already decided. The horizon shook as docking clamps from the alien fleet attached to the ship. The lights flickered, the walls groaned, the crew held their breath, and Daniel felt as if the stars themselves were closing around him. Then came a whisper through the communication channel. Not for Earth, not for the crew, but for him alone. A voice that melted through the static, gentle yet commanding. Daniel Hayes, do not fear. I'm coming. His knees weakened. Sweat formed on his brow. He wanted to answer, but words died in his throat. The voice was not angry, not cruel, but it carried weight like a storm hidden behind calm seas. The docking tunnel opened with a hiss. Light poured into the horizon, brighter than the sun. Shadows stretched along the walls. Footsteps echoed, slow, graceful, and heavy. The crew leaned forward, but none dared move. And there she was, Princess Ziyara of Zalira, stepping onto the human ship. Her figure tall and radiant, her eyes glowing like twin stars, her hair flowing like liquid silver. Her presence too powerful to describe. Even the air seemed to bend around her. Daniel froze, unable to breathe. The princess's gaze locked on him. Not the captain, not the generals, not the scientists, but him, the simple engineer who never dreamed of greatness. She raised her hand, and the crew stepped aside as if commanded by an unseen force. Daniel Hayes, she said, her voice echoing inside his bones. You are mine. And in that moment the world held its breath. The arrival of the princess had changed everything. The future of humanity was now tied to one man, and the stars had become a stage for love, power, and danger. The room was silent as the alien princess stood inside the human ship, her presence filling every corner. The crew who had faced battles and dangers before now stood frozen like statues. No weapon was raised, no word was spoken because her very eyes carried a force greater than any weapon. Daniel Hayes, the simple engineer, felt the weight of 1,000 stares on his back, but none of them mattered, for the only gaze he could feel was hers. The Princess of Zelira, tall and radiant, her silver hair floating gently as if the air itself bowed to her. Her glowing eyes fixed on him as if the rest of the universe did not exist. Daniel Hayes, her voice rang, not loud but heavy. You are mine. The words slipped into every ear, every screen, every broadcast across Earth. And yet the meaning of those words burned into Daniel's heart more than anyone else's. The captain finally found courage, his voice trembling. Your Highness, with respect, this is Earth territory, you cannot simply... But before he could finish, the princess raised a single finger, not in anger, not in violence, but in calm command, and the captain's words died like a candle in the wind. Then something no human expected happened. The princess bent her knee. She lowered herself in front of Daniel, the glow of her robe spilling across the floor like rivers of light. The most powerful being anyone had ever seen was kneeling before a human engineer with oil stains still on his hands. Gasps filled the command center. The crew's jaws dropped. The broadcast cameras caught everything. Across Earth, billions of people watched in disbelief. An alien princess kneeling before a man who had never even dreamed of leaving his small workshop. Daniel, she said softly, her voice warm now, almost gentle. I do not seek slaves, I do not seek soldiers. I seek a partner. Her words wrapped around him like a strange melody, something both terrifying and comforting. My people have power, technology, worlds beyond counting. But they have lost something greater. They have lost the fire of choice, the courage to love freely. That is why I have come to you. Daniel's throat tightened, his legs almost gave way. I don't understand, he whispered, his voice barely audible. The princess's lips curved into the faintest smile. Not mocking, but patient. You will, she answered. In time, the crew looked at one another. Confusion and fear in their eyes. Why him? Why this human? And what did she mean by fire of choice? Whispers ran like waves. Some believed it was destiny. Others believed it was a trick. But none could deny the strange aura of truth in her words. Daniel shook his head, sweat dripping from his brow. No, this is wrong. I'm no leader, I'm no king, I fix engines. I don't belong in thrones or crowns. His words came fast, almost desperate, but the princess only watched him calmly, her glowing eyes unblinking. You speak of what you are not, she said. But I see what you are, a heart that chooses freely, a man who can refuse even me. Her smile widened slightly, and for the first time Daniel felt chills that were not of fear but of realization. She expected him to resist. She wanted him to refuse, and still she smiled. The captain whispered under his breath. Why would she kneel to him? And no one had an answer. The princess rose slowly, her tall figure towering over the humans again. Light shimmering around her, she extended her hand toward Daniel, her long fingers glowing faintly with alien energy. Come, she said. Walk with me into the stars. Daniel's body refused to move. His mind screamed to run. Yet his heart pulsed with strange curiosity. Every instinct told him this was the beginning of something that could never be undone. No, Daniel finally said, his voice firmer this time. I can't. The words echoed across the room, across Earth, across the alien ships that listened. A human refusing a princess who could command armies with a thought. And yet instead of anger, instead of wrath, the princess laughed softly. Not cruelly, but with a strange joy. Good, she whispered. That is why you are worthy. The crew exchanged stunned glances. No one understood. The refusal was not an insult to her, but a gift. Do you think I came for obedience? She asked, her glowing eyes shifting across the silent room. I came for resistance, for courage, for a human who will stand even against me. Her gaze fell back to Daniel. And I have found him. Her words carried across the stars. Shaking every human heart watching the broadcast, some felt fear, some felt pride, but all felt the truth. Humanity had been chosen not for weakness, but for defiance. Then the princess turned, her robes flowing like rivers of light. Prepare him, she commanded gently, not as an order of chains, but as a promise of journeys. He will see my world. The crew hesitated. The captain looked at Daniel with uncertain eyes. But none dared disobey, not because of fear, but because of the strange power in her calm voice. Daniel felt the walls close in. The world spinning, his life no longer his own, yet deep inside a spark lit, small but growing. If she wanted him because he could resist, then maybe, just maybe, he still had a choice. As the princess walked back toward the docking tunnel, she paused, looking over her shoulder, her glowing eyes catching his once more. "Sleep well tonight, Daniel Hayes," she said softly. "For tomorrow you wake under two suns," and with that, she vanished into the golden light, leaving behind silence, questions, and a single truth. The galaxy had just witnessed the impossible, an alien princess asking not for surrender, but for a husband, and the chosen man had said no. But the story was only beginning. The horizon floated in silence after the princess left, but silence did not mean peace. Every screen on Earth replayed the strange moment again and again. The alien princess kneeling, Daniel refusing. The princess smiling as if that was exactly what she wanted. No one could explain it. No one could predict what would happen next. Daniel Hayes sat in his quarters, staring at his reflection. He still wore the same oil-stained uniform, but now the entire world called him the chosen one. He touched his face as if trying to see what she had seen, but he found nothing, just an ordinary man with tired eyes. Before he could gather his thoughts, the door opened with a hiss. Two alien guards stepped in, tall figures with armor that glowed faintly. They spoke in deep tones that humans could barely understand, but their meaning was clear. Daniel was to come with them. The captain gave Daniel a heavy look as he walked through the corridors. "Remember, you represent all of us now," he whispered. Daniel wanted to laugh at the thought. He was no diplomat, no hero, but his feet carried him anyway. The docking tunnel stretched like a glowing throat, and at the end waited the royal ship of Zelira, massive and elegant, shaped not like human warships but like a living creature. Its walls shimmered with veins of light. Its corridors hummed like music. Daniel felt both awe and fear as he stepped inside. Princess Ziyara stood at the far end of a grand chamber, her robes flowing, her glowing eyes calm. "Welcome, Daniel Hayes," she said, her voice soft but carrying across the hall. "Today you will be tested," Daniel frowned. "Tested?" he asked, his voice breaking. "For what?" "For truth," the princess answered. "For courage, for the fire your kind holds. My people doubt you. They demand proof that a human is worthy of standing beside me." Her gaze sharpened. "And so you will face what they bring." At her signal, the chamber shifted. Walls moved like liquid, forming a circle of alien nobles, tall, proud, and cold-eyed. They whispered in their strange tongue, their faces twisted in disdain. One of them stepped forward, his armor decorated with golden lines, his voice sharp. "This human is nothing. Let him fail and let this nonsense end." Daniel's mouth went dry, but the princess raised her hand. "You will all witness," she declared, her eyes glowing brighter. "You will all see." The first test began. The noble raised a strange device, a sphere of light that pulsed with heat. "Hold it," he commanded. "If you are strong," Daniel reached out. The sphere burned like fire. Pain shot through his skin. His hands trembled. He wanted to drop it, but he thought of Earth, of billions watching, of the princess's calm eyes, and he held on, his breath ragged, his arms shaking, until the sphere dimmed and vanished. The aliens murmured, unimpressed, but not satisfied either. The second test came from another noble, a duel, not with blades but with minds. He placed a crown of wires on Daniel's head. Alien energy surged into his brain. Visions poured into him. Fire, storms, endless voices screaming. The noble tried to crush his will. Daniel fell to his knees, his head pounding. But he remembered something simple. The workshop back home, the sound of engines, the smell of grease, the laughter of his friends, and he held on to that. The storm faded, and he stood again, breathing hard. Whispers rippled among the aliens, surprise flickering in their eyes. But the final test was different. A third noble brought out a creature, chained and snarling, its body covered in spikes, its eyes burning with hunger. "Kill it," the noble ordered, placing a blade in Daniel's hand. "Prove your worth." The creature lunged. Daniel's heart raced, the blade felt heavy in his grip. He could strike, he could end it, but as the beast fell at his feet, he saw its chains digging into its flesh, its eyes not just hungry but filled with pain, and in that moment Daniel dropped the blade. Instead of killing, he pushed the beast back and pulled at its chains. Freeing it, the creature blinked in shock, then slowly backed away, vanishing into the shadows. The chamber erupted in outrage. Aliens shouted, Weak, unworthy. Coward! Their voices thundered. But the princess raised her hand and the noise died. Her glowing eyes locked on Daniel. No, she said firmly, her voice echoing. He is stronger than any of you because he chose mercy when you demanded blood. Silence fell heavy. The nobles exchanged uneasy looks, their pride shaken, for mercy was something their people had long abandoned. Daniel stood there, chest heaving, sweat dripping, his hands shaking but his eyes steady. He had not fought with strength. He had not fought with cruelty. He had fought with humanity. The princess stepped closer, her presence wrapping around him like a storm. Yet her words were soft. "This is why I came to your world," she whispered. "Not for armies, not for kings, but for the courage to choose differently." Daniel swallowed hard, still unsure if he had passed or failed, but the faint smile on her lips told him enough. And far above Earth, across screens, across colonies, billions of humans leaned forward, watching with hearts racing, for in that chamber of stars, one man had shown the galaxy what it meant to be human. The tests were over, but the real trial had just begun. The chamber of tests had ended. The alien nobles fell silent, their sharp words cut down by the princess's calm command. Daniel Hayes stood at the center, still shaking from the pain of fire. Storms and chains, but alive. His refusal to kill had left the nobles angry. Yet the princess had smiled, and that smile carried more power than their rage. Daniel thought the worst was behind him, but he was wrong. The true danger was still waiting in the dark that night. The royal ship of Zalira drifted above Earth, glowing like a star, its vast halls alive with strange energy. Daniel wandered the corridors, guided by alien guards everywhere he looked. He saw wonders, walls that shifted like water, lights that pulsed like veins, and windows that opened to endless galaxies. But he also felt eyes on him. Cold and unfriendly, the nobles were watching, waiting, whispering. Princess Zayara welcomed him to a private chamber, its floor covered in silver patterns, its ceiling glowing with a soft light. "You did well today," she told him, her glowing eyes steady. "You showed them what I wanted them to see." Daniel frowned, sitting uneasily. "You mean mercy?" he asked. "Yes," she answered. "Mercy is power, the kind my people forgot, the kind they fear." Her words stirred something in him, but also a question he could not ignore. "Why me?" he asked. "Why humans? Why Earth?" The princess looked at him for a long time before answering, her voice softer now. "Because your people still choose. You still fight not only with weapons but with hearts. My people lost that long ago." She paused, her eyes dimming, but not all of them wished to find it again. Daniel leaned forward, sensing the weight in her words. "What do you mean?" Her answer was cut short by a sudden tremor. The ship shook. Alarms echoed through the halls. Alien guards rushed in, voices sharp in their strange tongue. Zayara's expression hardened. "The rebels," she whispered. Through the vast windows Daniel saw them. Dark ships sliding out of the shadows of space. Their hulls jagged, their weapons glowing red. They fired at the royal fleet. Explosions lit the stars. The guards shouted, the nobles panicked. And for the first time Daniel saw fear in alien eyes. The princess stood tall, her voice steady. "Hold formation," she commanded. Her fleet responded instantly. Shields rose, weapons answered. But the rebels came like wolves, fierce and unrelenting. Daniel stumbled as the chamber shook again. "Rebels?" he asked, gripping the edge of a silver table. "Rebels against you?" Zayara nodded once, her face stern. "There are those who do not want peace with your kind. They say humanity is weak, unworthy. They would rather burn your world than see you rise beside me." Daniel's chest tightened. He had thought this was only about him. About one strange marriage proposal, but now it was clear. It was about something much greater. Humanity itself stood in the middle of a war it did not choose. The guards rushed him out of the chamber, leading him through winding corridors, but whispers followed. He heard alien voices speaking of betrayal, of spies inside the princess's own council, of traitors who had guided the rebels straight to her fleet. Daniel's mind raced. If someone close to her had betrayed her, then even here in the heart of her royal ship, he was not safe. In another chamber the nobles gathered in fury, pointing at Daniel, their voices sharp. "This human is the cause. The rebels strike because of him," one shouted. "Remove him before he destroys us all," another snarled. Daniel froze, his heart pounding. He wanted to shout back, to deny it, but the weight of their glares crushed his words. Then the princess entered. her robes flowing, her presence silencing the room. "Enough," she said firmly. "The rebels attack because they fear change, not because of him." But Daniel saw it in their eyes. They did not believe her, and worse, some of them agreed with the rebels. As the battle raged outside, Daniel was led to a viewing deck. He stared at the stars torn apart by fire, alien ships exploding, human satellites falling silent, and he realized this war would not stay out there. It would come to Earth soon. The princess joined him, her voice quiet. "You see now, Daniel Hayes, the danger is not just from my enemies, but from within my own throne." Daniel turned to her, his voice low but steady. "Then why keep me here? Why risk everything for me?" Her glowing eyes softened, for the first time showing something close to human sorrow. "Because without you I cannot win, not against them. Not against myself." Before Daniel could answer, a shadow fell across the deck. An explosion ripped through the fleet. Alarms blared again and a voice cut through the comms, deep and filled with hate. "Princess of Zalira, surrender the human, or watch your world burn." The crew froze. The nobles shouted in fear, and Daniel felt his blood run cold. The rebels did not just want to destroy her. They wanted him. The princess placed a hand on his shoulder, her voice steady but heavy with meaning. "Now you see, Daniel Hayes, you are not only my choice. You are their fear." And as the battle roared around them, Daniel finally understood. This was not just about love or crowns, it was about survival. Humanity had been dragged into a galactic storm, and he was standing at its very center. The hidden threat had revealed itself, and it would not rest until either the princess or humanity was destroyed. The battle outside the royal fleet raged on. Flashes of red fire painted the stars. The rebel ships circled like predators, and inside the grand halls of Zalira, voices grew sharp and divided. The nobles shouted, some calling for surrender, some demanding war, but many of their eyes kept turning to Daniel Hayes, the human engineer who had never asked to be part of any of this. Daniel stood at the edge of the council chamber, his fists clenched. He could feel the weight of their stares, sharp like knives. One noble pointed at him with anger burning in his voice. "It is because of him, Princess, the rebels came for the human. They will not stop until he is gone." Another noble nodded quickly. "Give him to them and the attack will end. Our people will be safe. Let Earth pay its own price." Daniel's stomach twisted. The words cut deeper than any blade. But before he could speak, the princess rose from her throne, her glowing eyes fierce. "Enough!" Her voice thundered through the chamber, silencing them. "You would have me betray my choice. You would have me bow to rebels if you fear for your safety more than your honor. Then leave my council now." The room fell into uneasy silence, yet Daniel could see it. Not all of them were loyal. Not all of them would obey her. The shadows of betrayal were growing. Later, as he walked the long corridors of the ship, Daniel overheard whispers, two nobles speaking in hushed voices. "The princess is blinded by him," one said bitterly. "She risks our throne, our empire for a human. If we cannot turn her, we must remove her." Daniel's heart pounded. He pressed himself against the wall, his hands shaking. The words chilled him. This was not only about him anymore. They were plotting against her, her own people, her own council. That night the ship trembled as the rebels struck again. Corridors filled with smoke, alarms wailed, guards rushed to their posts. Daniel found himself pulled into the chaos. He ducked behind cover, watching as alien guards clashed with invaders in glowing armor. Blaster fire tore through the halls. Amid the confusion, Daniel saw something that froze his blood. One of the princess's closest advisors, a tall noble with golden markings on his robes, was moving with the rebels, guiding them through secret doors, his voice sharp as he gave them orders. "To the throne room, take her alive. Kill the human." Betrayal, it was not just whispers anymore. It was alive. It was moving, and it was aimed straight at them. Daniel's instinct screamed to run, but his feet carried him forward. He followed the traitor through the smoke-filled halls, his lungs burning, his heart racing, until he reached the throne chamber. There the princess stood with only a handful of guards, her glowing eyes calm even as chaos thundered outside. The traitor entered with rebels at his side, his voice venomous. "Ziara, your time is over. You shame our people with this human. With your weakness, step down, or die." The guards raised their weapons, but they were outnumbered. The rebels surrounded them. Daniel froze in the shadows, his hands trembling. He had no weapon, no plan, but his eyes locked on the princess, standing tall, defiant, unshaken, and something inside him broke free. With a shout, Daniel lunged forward, tackling the traitor to the ground. The rebels spun in shock, their weapons flashing. Chaos erupted in the chamber. Daniel struggled against the noble's strength. His hands clawing at the alien's weapon, he was weaker, slower, but he refused to let go, he refused to fail. The princess seized the moment, her eyes blazing like twin suns. With a wave of her hand, energy rippled through the chamber. Rebels staggered as if struck by invisible winds. Her guards rallied, blades clashed, sparks flew. Daniel's chest burned as he forced the traitor's weapon aside. The alien sneered, "You are nothing, human." But Daniel gritted his teeth. "Maybe," he hissed. "But I'm not a traitor." With a final surge, he knocked the noble back, his body crashing into the floor. The rebels faltered, their leader down, and in that moment the princess unleashed her full power. Light poured from her hands, blinding and fierce. The rebels cried out, retreating, dragged away by the shadows they came from. When silence fell again, the chamber was wrecked. Walls scorched, banners torn, guards wounded but alive. Daniel stood panting, his hands shaking, his clothes scorched, and at his feet lay the defeated traitor. Groaning in chains, the nobles rushed in moments later. Their eyes wide with shock, they stared at the human who had just saved their princess. The same man they had called weak, unworthy, dangerous. Princess Ziyara stepped forward, her glowing eyes softer now. She placed a hand gently on Daniel's shoulder, her voice calm but carrying across the chamber. "He saved me when my own people betrayed me. He stood when others fell. He is no prisoner, no pawn. He is my chosen." The nobles bowed their heads, some in shame, some in reluctant respect. None dared speak against her now. Daniel's heart still raced. Sweat dripped down his face, but as he looked into her eyes, he felt something new, not just fear, not just duty, but trust. She had defended him before the council, and now he had defended her before her enemies. Loyalty, fragile but real, had bound them together. And though the rebels still prowled the stars, though betrayal still lingered in shadows, Daniel knew one thing. He was no longer just a human caught in someone else's war. He was part of it, and he would not turn back. The galaxy had seen betrayal, but it had also seen loyalty, and in that fragile balance a new bond had been forged. The halls of the royal ship still carried the smell of smoke and fire. The betrayal had been revealed, the traitor chained, yet the rebellion outside did not end. The rebel fleet grew stronger, more ships pouring from the shadows, their weapons cutting through the void, their voices echoing across the comms. "Surrender the human, surrender the princess, or perish." Daniel Hayes stood beside Princess Ziyara as the command center shook under the force of another blast. Alarms screamed, guards shouted, nobles argued. Some begged her to flee, others urged her to give Daniel away. But the princess stood tall, her glowing eyes filled with fire. "I will not run, and I will not surrender," she declared. Her words spread through the fleet. Her soldiers lifted their heads, their fear pushed back by her courage, but Daniel could see it in their eyes. They were outnumbered, their shields weakening, their world trembling on the edge of ruin. He turned to her, his voice low. "We can't win this war alone." She looked at him with steady calm. "We will not be alone," she said. "Your people will fight," Daniel blinked. "Earth?" he asked. "They don't even understand your world. They don't even trust me." The princess smiled faintly. "They will," she whispered, "for when the fire of survival meets the fire of choice, nothing can stop humanity." And so, a call was sent to Earth. Leaders, generals, and ordinary people saw the rebels' demand. They heard the princess's voice. They saw Daniel standing at her side. Humanity faced a choice: to hide and hope or to fight and stand. The answer came in the roar of engines. Earth's fleets rose into the stars, small compared to the rebels, weaker in weapons, but filled with human spirit. Every pilot, every soldier, every engineer fought not for conquest, but for survival. The battle became chaos. Human ships darted through enemy lines using speed and wit instead of sheer power. Alien fleets clashed with rebel warships. Light and fire tore across the stars. Daniel stood at the command deck, watching in awe and terror. He had never been a soldier, yet now he was part of a war that stretched across galaxies. But even courage has limits. The rebels pressed harder, their numbers overwhelming, their weapons cutting down ships like falling stars. Earth's fleet burned, Zelyra's fleet faltered, and still the rebels advanced. "Too many," Daniel whispered, his chest tight. "We can't hold them." The princess stood unshaken, though her eyes burned with sorrow. "If my people cannot accept a human, then they will accept extinction," she said coldly, her words striking like a blade. "I will not surrender you, Daniel Hayes. I would rather die beside you." Her guards lowered their heads, their loyalty unshaken, and Daniel felt something stir inside him. Stronger than fear, stronger than doubt. It was not just about survival anymore. It was about love, about loyalty, about proving to the galaxy that humanity mattered. The rebels surged toward the royal ship, their flagship looming, its dark hull bristling with weapons, its warlord's voice booming across the comms. "This ends tonight, Princess. Your reign dies. And your human dies with you." The ship shook violently as blasts tore through its shields, alarms screamed, systems flickered. Daniel stumbled, catching himself on the railing. The nobles shouted in panic, some demanding escape pods, some demanding surrender. But the princess raised her hand, her eyes glowing brighter than ever. "No escape, no surrender," she said firmly. "We fight!" Her words sparked fire across the decks. Human and alien alike took their posts. Pilots launched, soldiers braced. Even the wounded rose to stand, and Daniel felt it too. The fire of survival, the fire of choice. Yet as the battle thundered on, the enemy grew stronger still. Their fleet tightened around them, their weapons ready for the final strike. Daniel's heart raced. He could see it. They were losing then. The unthinkable happened. An explosion ripped through the ship. The walls shook. The lights flickered out. Daniel was thrown to the floor, his ears ringing. Smoke filled the command deck, and when he looked up, his blood froze. The princess was gone, guards shouted. Searching the wreckage, nobles screamed in panic. But Daniel knew she had been taken. The rebels had struck their blow, not to destroy but to capture, and they had succeeded. His chest tightened. Rage burned in his veins. She had defended him when all others doubted. She had chosen him when no one else believed, and now she was gone. The rebel warlord's voice boomed across the comms again, cold and cruel. "The Princess of Zalira is ours. Her reign is over. Her human stands alone. Surrender now and we may spare your world." Silence fell heavy on the ship. The nobles looked broken, the soldiers shaken. Even the guards seemed uncertain. All eyes turned to Daniel, the human engineer who had never asked for any of this. Daniel rose slowly, his hands still trembling, his lungs burning with smoke, but his eyes steady. "No," he whispered, his voice growing stronger. "We don't surrender, not now. Not ever." The room went still, his words hung in the air. Soft but heavy, he turned to the crew, his voice shaking but firm. "She fought for us. Now we fight for her, we fight for love. We fight for survival." And in that moment something shifted. Human and alien alike lifted their heads, their fear burning into fire. They would not surrender. Not to the rebels. Not to anyone. Daniel Hayes, the man who once only fixed engines, now stood as the heart of a war. The princess was captured. But her choice lived on, and with it, the galaxy's final battle had just begun. The command deck of the royal ship was filled with silence after the rebel warlord's message. Screens flickered with smoke and fire. Alarms echoed faintly, and yet all that Daniel Hayes could hear was the sound of his own heartbeat. The princess was gone, taken by the rebels, and without her, the fleet trembled. The nobles whispered of surrender. Soldiers lowered their heads. The galaxy seemed ready to fall. But Daniel stood at the center, his body bruised, his hands trembling. And still his voice rose. "We don't surrender," he said, his eyes burning with fire. "She fought for us, now we fight for her. For Earth, for Zalira, for everything." The words spread like sparks. The soldiers straightened. The guards gripped their weapons tighter. Even the nobles looked up with uneasy respect. A human, once dismissed as weak, now stood as their only hope. The fleet gathered, damaged but alive. Earth's ships moved into formation beside Zalira's. And Daniel took command, not as a captain, not as a king, but as someone who refused to give up. The plan was reckless, dangerous, but it was the only chance. The rebels had taken the princess aboard their flagship, a massive vessel bristling with weapons, its shadow darkening the stars to rescue her. Daniel would have to lead both human and alien forces into the heart of the enemy. As the fleet prepared, Daniel stood before the crew, his voice raw but steady. "We fight not because we are strong, but because we choose to fight, we choose to stand, we choose to love. That is something no enemy can take from us." And so the battle began. The human ships darted forward, weaving through the enemy lines, their smaller size turning into speed, their pilots using tricks the rebels had never seen. Zalira's fleet fired in unison, their elegant weapons cutting arcs of light through the void. Together they moved as one, united by something greater than survival. The rebel fleet roared back, their weapons tearing through ships. Explosions lit the stars, but still humanity pressed forward. Daniel stood at the helm, guiding the attack, his heart pounding. His eyes locked on the rebel flagship, inside that dark vessel. Princess Ziara was bound in chains of energy. The rebel warlord stood before her, his armor black as night, his voice sharp. You threw away your empire for a human, and now your empire will die with you. But even in chains, her glowing eyes burned with defiance. You fear him, she said softly. You fear what humanity carries. That is why you fight so desperately, the warlord snarled, striking her down, but her words echoed in the chamber like fire. Back in the battle, Daniel's fleet carved a path through the chaos. He could see the flagship now, its massive hull glowing red. His voice rang through the comms. Boarding teams. With me, they launched across the void. Human marines and Zelleran guards together, their ships latching onto the flagship. Corridors erupted in fire as they stormed inside. Daniel led the charge, his heart a storm of fear and courage, every step carrying him closer to her. The rebels fought fiercely, their blades sparking, their weapons roaring. Daniel stumbled, nearly falling, but each time he rose, not for glory, not for power, but for her, for the bond that had changed everything. Finally, they reached the throne chamber of the flagship, its walls black, its air heavy with smoke. And there she was, the princess, chained, her eyes still glowing, her body bruised but unbroken. Daniel's chest tightened, relief and rage burning as one. The rebel warlord stepped forward, his towering figure casting a long shadow. So the human comes, he sneered. Do you think you can save her? You are nothing. Daniel lifted his head, sweat dripping down his face, his voice raw. Maybe I am nothing, but I'm human. And that means I choose to stand. I choose her. The warlord laughed, his blade crackling with energy. Then choose your death. The chamber shook as they clashed. Daniel was weaker, slower. Every strike of the warlord's blade sent him reeling, but still he rose again and again. His arms aching, his lungs burning, he remembered the tests, the pain of fire, the storm of visions, the choice of mercy, everything that had brought him here, and he refused to fall. The princess watched, her eyes wide, and in that moment she understood why she had chosen him. Not for strength, not for power, but for the spirit that could never be broken. The warlord raised his blade for the final strike, but Daniel moved first. Not with strength, but with courage, he dropped his weapon, his empty hands grabbing the warlord's wrist, forcing the strike aside, his voice a roar. You'll never break me because I'm human. The warlord staggered, caught off guard. And in that heartbeat, the princess's chains shattered in a burst of light. She rose with power blazing from her hands. Together they struck, Daniel holding the warlord down, the princess unleashing her energy, the chamber exploding in light. When the smoke cleared, the warlord lay broken, his weapon shattered, his army retreating in panic. The rebel fleet crumbled, their unity gone, their will broken. The princess turned to Daniel, her glowing eyes soft, her hand reaching for his. You fought without strength, without weapons. And still you won, she whispered. That is why I chose you. That is why humanity must stand beside me. Daniel took her hand, his chest heaving, his voice low. I didn't win alone. We won together. Across the galaxy the battle ended, the rebels scattered. The fleets of Earth and Zalira stood united. For the first time, not as enemies, not as strangers, but as allies. And in the throne chamber of the flagship, a human and an alien princess stood side by side, their bond sealed not by command, not by fear, but by choice. The galaxy had witnessed war, but it had also witnessed love, and in that love a new age had begun. The final choice had been made, and it belonged not to kings or empires, but to two hearts that chose each other.